Okay, so I am getting ready to start priming my parts. I did a couple of test primes to make sure that the paint flows well. And I have my airbrush ready to go. However, I'm going to take the time to discuss my experience with a primer, which quite honestly, I gave it its chance, and I am not happy with it. But then again, I may be doing something wrong. That product is this, the Vellajo's Mecha Primer, water-based acrylic airbrush primer. Now, I thought this was going to be a no-brainer. Vellajo does make some paints that's for non-airbrushing, and then this one is actually for airbrushing, and I've seen a lot of people do some work online with this primer and with the paints itself, and I have, you know, the Vellajo's Mecha Color version. This is the gunmetal one, to see how it is. But for whatever goddamn reason, this primer would not cooperate with me at all. First, I did a couple of drops into the reservoir of my airbrush, sprayed, nothing came out, both on both high and low PSIs. Then I put a little thinner. The thinner that I used was Tamiya's Color acrylic paint. I have about maybe an ounce there, so I didn't want to lose what I have there, and I'm going to have to end up buying some more if I'm going to continue using acrylic paint, because, you know, that's the way they go. Nothing, no flow whatsoever. I used this product, Airbrush Thinner by Vellajo, to see if that helps me out. Nothing. I used water. This thing, when it comes out, and as a matter of fact, let me see if I have a tray here. We'll do a test. This tray is already like oxidized, so I'm sorry if you're gonna see this. And I'm gonna give it the good old stir. I don't feel that there's a ball bearing in there to agitate the paint, but boy, I was not happy with this. Not happy at all. I mean, here it is, as you could see. It is very, very thick. Very, very thick. And I did thin this down to milky coat and all that, you know, to a very watery coat, you could say. Not too watery, but not too thick. But when it goes on through my airbrush, it starts to bubble up like it's like I'm making bubbles, and bubbles that dry up really fast. Now I don't know if it's the temperature in my room, because I don't have no AC unit. I have fans here hitting me. It's not hot. It's not humid as well, and temperature is somewhere around the 60s, you could say. But this thing would not come out of my airbrush, and every time I put it on, it clogged it up. I had to spend, you know, a lot of time cleaning it up. So I'm bailing on this paint, on this primer. I really am. I don't know. Again, I don't know if it's me. I don't know if it's my airbrush. And I use 2 airbrushes. It did at one point, when I put it at full blast, like over 40 psi, it did start to come out, and then it started clogging. So, unless somebody tells me what to do, I am not using this product at all. Friends of mine told me, I can't use this one because it's an acrylic paint, but I don't have a retardant. Somebody told me to use a retardant, but this is acrylic. This is not lacquer-based paint. I was actually considering of using this product, the Pure Thinner by the Finisher brand, but I think I'm going to screw that up as well, because every time you pour it in, you actually see the paint separate, the pigments separate, and then you see you know, I'm not touching that paint. I'm going to go with tried and true Mr. Finishing Surfacer 1500 gray. I never have a problem with this, and I'm going to continue using this. I could have easily used the one shot by Mig Ammo, because that actually works to a certain degree, and I kind of figured out. And oh, one last thing I should have also pointed out. I also purchased Neo's CN fluid needle 0.35 millimeter for the airbrush. Same issue. Same issue. So, love it or hate it, I'm not endorsing Vallejo paints forever. There's nothing of Vallejo that will appeal to me unless they change their game. I'm glad that Prime 92 is able to figure out what to do with the Vallejo air colors. She's doing a great job, and watch her channel of her recent paint job. But I'm not a fan of Vallejo. I'll stick with AK, I'll stick with Mig Ammo, and I'll stick with Tamiya, and of course Mr. Hobbies. Anyway, that's all I have to say. Let me begin priming these guys for painting. Okay, so now I'm going to begin painting the parts that makes up the Uraven Gundam, as you can see here. All my parts have been primed using the Mr. Finishing Surfacer 1500 gray. And now I'm going to start painting using the Mig Ammo colors. Now, I did talk about colors that I was going to use, but after reviewing what I'm going to use, I didn't like it. I'm going to switch up a few things here and there, especially like certain parts that make up the inner frame, the joints, the hands, the gun, some other things that I think maybe it would probably be good to try a different color, not the same two-tone blue. Not a big fan of that. And for like certain parts, like let's say the hand right here, this part here that makes up the funnel bit type thing, the joint for the leg, this is the part that goes in the calf thruster. I'm going to use polished metal, MiG 129. So make sure that this flows okay. Oh, also got to remember that liquid mixture here. Now I'm not using the spray booth because, in all due fairness, there's no heavy particles for this. It's actually nice and neat, easy to spray on, and there's no fumes on this. But always wear a mask. So I'm just going to do light passes here. I'm going to paint the insides because that's a detail part there. Actually, I'm going to try to zoom in a bit. And I'm going to add a little bit more thinner. The one cool thing about AK is I've noticed, I've read about that this paint is really good. It's very forgiving using Tamiya's acrylic thinner, and even Mr. Leveling color thinner also works well on this as well. It actually improves the flow, and it doesn't messes up the paint. I had thinner from MiG, but I completely ran out of that. But this does work as an alternative. I don't know if you guys can see this in the light. Let me just readjust everything here. Alright, so the next paint I'm going to start using is the, I think this is referred to as marine blue, MiG 123. Yes, because of the other color. This is the darker version of this. And I actually didn't thin this because some of these paints are pre-thinned. But we're going to do this nice and slow because reading up on this, it's good to apply this in small, even strokes. So, start with this guy first, since there's a lot of surface detail here. I also fixed up the problem with the airbrush making that weird sound, so it's now a little bit nice and smooth now. Don't know if maybe because of the thinner. Now, I'm not doing a complete blast on this because this paint is to be put on slowly. I'm not going to waste everybody's time watching me paint every part like this quickly. Ooh. So when you notice something that goes on too fast and then you oversaturate a bit, you want to go slow again. Now, I took the liberty of painting the other side of this, the polished metallic. There we go. And I would like to use that same color for like some trim parts. But for now I'm going to put this on, then I'm going to top coat it. That looks good. That's actually really nice. I like that. Let's do this one. Yeah, Mig Ammo does some really good paints. Let's see if I can grab it here. This one I can let go because it's under it. There we go. It's a nice shade. It really is. Let's do this one. This is the shoulder part that I'm going to have to mask off later on because there's a detail right here which I want to paint it the other color. Alright, so this looks good. Some parts I'm going to revisit again to make sure I do it right, and then we'll review some more parts later on to make sure that it comes out okay. Whoops, let me just zoom out. So let me continue on to continue the, paint the blues, and then we'll move on to the next color. Alright, so next up is going to be the coal gray, which is the closest thing to white. I'm going to start painting the white parts for this, but this is also I'm going to be painting also the red parts as well. So, and the yellow. Hold on, let me make sure it comes out. So that way I can give it a white base background for those colors as well. The pigments on this one's a little too thick, and I try to put a lot of, do 50-50 with the white, with the thinner, but I think it's not well. It doesn't take the thinner very well, so I had to redo it again and then just put a little bit on it, maybe like about 10% of it. It's coming out nice, and there's a nice sheen to it now. That's good. Let me, like I said, I'm going to be painting this red, but I'm going to give it the white base. I'm doing low pressure on this. I know there's a section here that needs to be masked, or, be painted a different color, but I'm going to probably end up painting like that space, here, and here, different color tones. Let me grab the other side first. Not too much on the inside, because on the inside that's going to be all turned red anyway. You probably won't even notice it. Alright, so that's done. In my last segment of the paints, I painted like the blue, and two parts had like two droplets there. So what I did was I took sanding paper, 1000 and then 3000, and then began to lightly sand it down a bit to remove it and not remove the entire paint, and then I respray painted it again, and I got it balanced out again. Clearly, when you're doing this with the white, it's kind of difficult. Sometimes you'll see the splatter and it'll settle down after it sets. But wait until it dries, see if you can recover it by sanding it down, and if that doesn't work, just completely sand it down, completely to remove it, and then reprime it, and then resand it again, or repaint it again. Okay, so there we go. Not completely done, but there we go. I'm going to also have to top coat these parts once they dry, because since I've done masking with acrylic paint, with lacquer-based paint, but I've had situations where when I used acrylic paint and I mask it, the paint gets peeled off even after it's dried. So I'm going to have to look into the possibility of top coating it so that way I can protect what was under, and we'll go from there. I don't know if anybody has experienced that similar situation before. Ooh, just rubbed off. Let me just do a light pass there. Hopefully it'll balance out. If it doesn't, I'll have to respray paint it again, which of course that will suck. Alright, so I'm going to be painting, I'm going to continue on painting the white on all the remaining parts, and then we'll do the color parts in a minute.